નમસ્કાર. આજે સંધાન વ્યાખ્યાનમાળામાં આજનો ટોપિક મેમ્બ્રેન ટ્રાન્સપોર્ટ છે. And to deliver this lecture on membrane transport, we have with us two esteemed guests, both from M.B. Patel Science College, Anand. On my extreme left is Professor Kamal Menon, and to my left is Professor Samir Gajjar. Both the teachers are well versed in the subject of microbiology and have a large experience behind them. They are extremely nice speakers, as you will realize later on from the lectures, that they have a very good command over the subject. Now, the topic of discussion today is membrane transport. તો વિદ્યાર્થી મિત્રો, તમે બધા જાણતા હશો કે કોઈ પણ સેલની અંદર, એ સેલ પ્લાન્ટનો હોય, એનિમલનો હોય, અથવા તો પ્રોકેરિયોટિક સેલ્સ હોય, બેક્ટેરિયા, ફંજાઈ or protozoa. All these cells, they possess a outside cover which we call them as a membrane, and this layer, this membranous layer is very important for the cell, in the sense that first important role is they keep all the constituents in a pouch. All vital constituents of the cells are there inside the membrane, including nucleus or nuclear material and other structures. Now, this membrane is also important for the cell because it is the responsible structure which determines which are the materials, which are the compounds or the molecules which should pass through the membrane either inside or outside the cell. Because when the cell has to grow, it is necessary for a cell to take certain nutrients which are there in the environment, and these nutrients flow across the membrane into the cells. Similarly, when these nutrients are being used up for their metabolic activity, the end product of the metabolic activity is certain waste materials, and these waste materials have to be thrown out. જો એ વેસ્ટ મટીરિયલ્સને બહાર ના ફેંકે તો સેલની અંદર ટોક્સિક ઇફેક્ટ જનરેટ થશે અને સેલ્સ મે ડાય ઓર ધ મેટાબોલિક પ્રોસેસ મે સ્લો ડાઉન, and therefore it is mandatory that these substances have to be removed from the cells. So for both the purposes, either for taking in the nutrients or other elements, or for removing certain compounds from the cells, cell membrane plays a very vital role. You can say cell membrane is something like a door of your home through which you allow only certain persons to come in and allow certain individuals to go out. Now, the structure and the ways in which this process takes place will be discussed in detail by our guests from Anand. To begin with, I introduce to you Professor Samir Bhai, who will discuss about the basic structure and certain functions of the membranes. Thank you, Samir Bhai.
Thank you, sir. So, good morning, everybody. Today we shall be discussing about the topic of membrane transport. As the sir has already told, that we are going to discuss about the structure of cytoplasmic membrane, which controls the entry and the exit of the molecules in and out of the cell. And also we shall be discussing about the laws of thermodynamics which affects the process of transportation of nutrients, and we shall be covering about the different types of membrane transport mechanisms. So as we know that all the living organisms, whether they are plant cells or animal cells or microscopic organisms, they are made up of a smaller unit, and that smaller unit is the cell. And this cell, it is been common in all the types of organism which we observe, and this cell has to perform various types of activity. So as shown in the figure, the first part of the figure shows the prokaryotic cell, and the second part of the figure shows the animal cell. Now we can make out the difference between both the types of the cell. The first type of cell, that is a prokaryotic cell, it is much simpler in organization in comparison to the animal cell. And there are other differences which are also present in both the types of cells. For example, in case of the animal cell or eukaryotic cells, there is a presence of nucleus and nucleolus, which is absent in case of prokaryotic cell. Other than that, the eukaryotic cell, they also possess various types of organelles, which is absent in case of prokaryotic cell. But apart from these differences, both the cell possess cell membrane, and this cell membrane is very important element of the cell because it controls the entry and the exit of various molecules. Now cell need to carry out various types of activity. So irrespective of the structure, both the types of cells are going to show various types of activities, and these various types of activity will be common in both the types of cell. Right? For example, in both the types of the cell, that is in case of the prokaryotic cell as well as in case of eukaryotic cells, there will be the process of energy synthesis. Both the type of cells are going to synthesize energy, because without energy the cell cannot sustain its life, right? So the energy synthesis process will be going on. Other than that, inside the cell there will be the process of building macromolecules. The cell is going to synthesize important macromolecules like enzymes, proteins, and various other building blocks will also be made in the cell. And apart from that, the cell is going to carry out large number of metabolic reactions. In a small cell, thousands of metabolic reactions will be going on, and to carry out all these activities, cell requires nutrition, and without nutrition cell cannot sustain its life. So cell requires vital elements, and that vital elements is nutrients, and this nutrient has to be transported from the environment into the cell. Cell requires nutrient like sugar, amino acid, nucleotides, and at the same time the toxic metabolites which are normally being produced during the metabolic reaction has to be excreted out of the cell. And if that process also does not occur properly, then also large number of metabolites, waste metabolites are going to accumulate in the cells. So cell membrane has to carry out two functions. It has to carry out the function of transportation of nutrient inside the cell. At the same time, it has to excrete the waste metabolites out of the cell, and it has to maintain the internal balance, and that is called a homeostasis. Cell membrane also does the function of protection, and it supports the cell. It gives the support to the cell. So cell membrane is very important molecule for the cell. Now if we observe the structure of cell membrane, as you can see in the figure, cell membrane structure is proposed by fluid mosaic model, and this fluid mosaic model, as you can see in the figure, it is made up of phospholipids. So bilayered lipid is present in the structure of cytoplasmic membrane, and these bilayered lipids are present along with certain protein molecules, and these protein molecules, they are of two different types. The first type of protein molecules, they are embedded in the bilayers. So bilipid layers, along with that bilipid layer, certain protein molecules, they are embedded in that structure, and that type of protein is known as integral protein. Whereas second type of proteins, they are just present on the surface, and they are known as peripheral proteins. So apart from the bilipid layers, cell membrane contains two types of lipid molecule, integral lipid and peripheral lipids. Now integral lipids, they are most important in a sense that the transportation process will be done by those integral proteins, and the lipid bilayers is being arranged in such a manner that a lipid molecule contains an head region and it contains a tail region. Now head region is generally hydrophilic in nature, whereas the tail region is hydrophobic. So both the lipid layers or lipid molecules, they are arranged in such a manner that the tail regions or the tail regions of the two lipid layers, they are present adjacent to each other, whereas the head regions, they are present opposite to each other. And because of such arrangement, the overall nature of the cytoplasmic membrane is it imparts hydrophobicity. Next figure. And it imparts hydrophobicity. So as you can see in the figure, the first figure shows that the head region, it is a polar region and it dissolves water, whereas the tail region, it hides water, so it is hydrophobic in nature. And it is been arranged in such a manner that the whole cytoplasmic membrane, it is going to float on a cytoplasmic fluid. Now this cytoplasmic membrane contains protein, as we had discussed earlier, that it contains two types of proteins. The first type of proteins are integral protein, which are being embedded in the cytoplasmic membrane, and as shown in the next figure, we will be able to see that this cytoplasmic membrane contains some proteins, and those proteins are having pores, and through those pores the nutrient molecule is going to enter into the cell. So from an external environment, nutrient molecule will be passed through these integral proteins and they will be released into the cytoplasmic fluid. Now these proteins or cytoplasmic membrane is semi-permeable in a nature that it is going to allow only a few molecules to enter into it, and it is going to allow only a few molecules to leave out of the cell. Other than that, so this is a two-way transportation. Waste material will be transported out of the cell. At the same time, nutrient molecule will be transported inside the cell. Other than that, if we talk about eukaryotic cells, in case of eukaryotic cell, there is a transport across the membrane-bound organelles. Eukaryotic cell possesses mitochondria, and this mitochondria, it is also having a membrane through which the exchange of nutrients will be taking place. So in case of eukaryotic cell, the transportation of nutrient is going to occur across the cell and the environment, and the transportation of nutrient will be occurring between the cytoplasmic fluid and the cell organelles. Now this cytoplasmic membrane, as we had talked earlier, it is a semi-permeable layer, so it is going to allow only few molecules to enter and few molecules to leave. As shown in the figure, these are the examples of molecules to which cell membrane is permeable. So lipid bilayer is permeable to water molecules, and those molecules to which cell membrane is permeable is oxygen, carbon dioxide, and those molecules are examples of small molecules which can diffuse freely in and out of the cell. The cell membrane is not permeable to certain types of molecules, right? For example, the cell membrane is not permeable to the ions such as K+, Na+, and Ca+2. Other than that, it is non-permeable to anions like chloride and bicarbonates. Other than that, the cell membrane is also not permeable to the hydrophilic molecules like glucose and the macromolecules like protein. Now when the cell has to transport nutrient from an external environment into the cell faces many problems, and two of the major problems faced by the cells are: first, as we had discussed earlier, that the cell membrane is having hydrophobic nature, whereas most of the nutrients, they are hydrophilic. So because of the difference in the nature of the cytoplasmic membrane and the nutritional molecule, the difficulty is that such nutrient molecule which are hydrophilic, it is difficult to transport such molecules. The second major problem faced by the cell is that the cell is constantly living in an environment in which the nutrition is present in a very minute amount, and that nutrition is also vanishing as the time goes on. So thus, to transport such type of low concentrated nutrient molecule into a cell, the cell requires energy. So energy has to be spent for such transportation. Now before discussing the different processes which are involved in the transportation of nutrient, we shall discuss about the laws of transport. Now here the laws of thermodynamics apply to transport of nutrients. As we can see in the figure, that movement of any molecule up or down the concentration gradient involves a change in the free energy, and that change in the free energy is known as delta G. Now delta G should be negative in order to make the process thermodynamically favorable. So if delta G, that is change in the free energy, is negative, then the process is favorable, and if the change in the free energy is positive, then the process will be favorable. Now, as we can see from the laws of transport, delta G, that is change in the free energy that is occurring during the transportation process, it can be calculated from this formula. And this formula says that delta G is equal to RT multiplied by log C2 divided by C1. Now here R refers to the gas constant and T is the absolute temperature, and C2 and C1 is the concentration which is present outside and inside. Now if the concentration C2 is less than C1, then the delta G is negative and the process becomes thermodynamically favorable. And if C2 is more than C1, then delta G is going to be positive and the process will become thermodynamically unfavorable. But such type of unfavorable process can also be made favorable if we couple the global delta G with it. So such type of process, the thermodynamically unfavorable process, can be made favorable if we are going to couple it with some another process in which the delta G value is going to be negative. So here the figure shows that the formula which has been given in the end of that figure, the delta G is equal to RT log C inside upon C outside. Suppose the first part of that formula, RT multiplied by log C inside divided by C outside, if that is positive, then the process is unfavorable, but we can make it favorable by addition of delta global G, and if that delta global G is negative, then the overall delta G will be negative and the process can be made favorable. Other than this, there are various other factors which affects the laws of transportation, and in that those factors, the charge of the molecule is important. So for charged molecule, other than the delta G, the factors which affect the law of transportation or favorability of the reaction is the charge of the molecule, and that applies or that can be calculated by another formula in which the Faraday's constant and the type of the charge will be considered. Now we shall start about the various types of processes, and I would now switch over to my colleague Kamal Menon to take over the further session.
So once again, good morning to all of you. Just now my colleague has explained that for the transport of any molecule across the membrane, the energetics has to be considered, and if the energetic, that is the free energy, delta G, is negative, the reaction is thermodynamically favorable and spontaneous. But if that particular reaction, in that particular reaction, if the delta G is positive, then the reaction is thermodynamically unfavorable. Now to make the thermodynamically unfavorable reaction favorable, what you need to do is that particular reaction is to be coupled with another reaction whose free energy is negative and large. So what is happening is that when the two reactions are combined, the overall delta G becomes negative and the reaction which was earlier unfavorable thermodynamically now becomes favorable. So on that particular basis, right, on that particular basis, we can classify the transport process into two categories. The first is the passive processes and another is the active processes. Now passive processes are those processes in which the transport of molecule across the cytoplasmic membrane is spontaneous and does not need any expenditure of energy. While in the second process, that is in case of active processes, the transport across the membrane is basically coupled with another reaction. Earlier it is thermodynamically unfavorable, but because of the coupling, the reaction becomes favorable. That means you need expenditure of energy, you need another reaction which leads to larger free energy, and that is negative, so the reaction becomes thermodynamically favorable. So you are having two different processes, one is the active process and another is a passive process. Now when you discuss about passive processes where energy is not required, the passive processes are basically of three different types: the simple diffusion, facilitated diffusion and osmosis. Now when you talk about osmosis, the important thing to be remembered is that in osmosis, it is not the molecule that is being transported, but it is the water that is being transported. So nutrient molecules are not transported, but the water molecules are basically transported across the cytoplasmic membrane, and this movement of water is basically governed by the concentration of nutrient molecule, you can say solutes, across the cytoplasmic membrane. So depending upon the imbalance in the concentration of molecules across the cytoplasmic membrane, there will be movement of water inside and movement of water outside. So the cell, depending upon the requirement, depending upon the environment in which it is being placed in, will have either removal of water, or it will may add the, or you can say it will allow the entry of water inside the cell. Now we'll talk about the simple diffusion. Now in case of simple diffusion, the important thing is that the molecules are transported across the cytoplasmic membrane, and the diffusion is direct through the lipid bilayer and without the expenditure of energy, as I said earlier. But another important aspect to be remembered in simple diffusion is that the molecules are transported, but here during the transport no cytoplasmic membranes are involved, or no transport proteins are involved. The molecules as it is diffused through the lipid bilayer. And this kind of diffusion of molecules across the cytoplasmic membrane is basically influenced by the nature of the bilayer, that means what kind of lipid the membrane contains, and it also depends upon the characteristics of the nutrient, whether the nutrients are able to shed away its water shell or not, how easily, and what is the energetics for the removal of that water shell. That ultimately determines the easy passage of those molecules across the cytoplasmic membrane. And again, the diffusion of the molecule across the cytoplasmic membrane the velocity of the diffusion in fact depends upon the size of the molecule, the concentration gradient which is present across the cytoplasmic membrane, and hydrophobicity of that particular molecule. And another important aspect is the charge of the molecule, if the molecule is having any charge. Now example of simple diffusion is the gases like carbon dioxide, nitrogen and oxygen can easily diffuse through the lipid bilayer without any hindrance, and certain molecules like urea, ethanol and water can also cross the cytoplasmic membrane without any hindrance. Now here I would like to emphasize one thing, that water molecule can pass through the lipid layer, but the process of the movement of water, you can say transfer of water across the cytoplasmic membrane, is relatively a very slow process. Just I have explained earlier, in case of osmosis there is movement of water. So that movement of water, because of the osmosis, may be to some extent possible by the simple diffusion, but there are other factors responsible for the movement of water across the cytoplasmic membrane that we'll be discussing in the next point. The second aspect of passive process, the second type of passive process is facilitated diffusion. Now the facilitated diffusion is to some extent similar with passive diffusion. At the same time, it is different from passive diffusion as well. Now we will see the similarity and differences one by one. The similarity between facilitated diffusion and the simple diffusion is that here the molecules are transported across the cytoplasmic membrane mainly because of the differences in the concentration gradient. That means the molecules are transported across the cytoplasmic membrane from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration, right? But the difference is that the passage of the nutrients through the cytoplasmic membrane is not directly through the lipid bilayer, but here certain membrane proteins which are normally called as transporters or permeases are involved. These transporters or permeases, they are basically a facilitators which will facilitate the transfer of molecules across the cytoplasmic membrane. And because of the involvement of this facilitator protein, this particular passive process is also known as facilitated diffusion. Now in case of facilitated diffusion, the facilitator proteins, they are normally a transmembrane proteins, and they create a water filled pore through which the ions or small hydrophilic molecules can easily pass. And these pores can be open or closed depending upon the requirement of the cell. As you can see in this slide, a figure is there in which a phospholipid bilayer is being shown, and in blue color the proteins, the transmembrane proteins are shown, and these transmembrane proteins are the facilitator proteins, and the red colored molecules are the nutrients which is to be transported. So the concentration of the molecule is higher on one side, and this drives the movement of the molecule across the cytoplasmic membrane, and the facilitator proteins, as you can see, is helping in the transport of such kind of molecules from outside environment to the inside of the cell. Now facilitated diffusion can take place, as I said earlier, through facilitator proteins, and these facilitator proteins can be porins. Now porins are aqueous channels which accelerate the passive diffusion of small hydrophilic molecules like sugar across the membrane. And this kind of porine molecules are found as monomers or trimers. That means they may be a single unit, or it may be having a multiple unit. Say for example, it may be having 3 units combined together, and they are normally present in the outer membrane of bacteria, mainly gram negative, and certain other membranes of mitochondria, chloroplast, and mitochondria and chloroplast of the eukaryotic cells. Now the porins are having selectivity. Selectivity means it will not allow the passage of all the molecules but only certain molecules. And this solute selectivity of the porin is basically determined by the characteristics of amino acid side chain at the entrance and the interior lining of the pore, as well as the size of the opening. That means, as you all are aware that the proteins are made up of amino acids. So what are the amino acids present at the surface through which the molecules are going to enter, and what are the amino acids present during the passage of the protein, which will actually allow the movement of molecules across the cytoplasmic membrane. That will determine the transport of molecules. Some molecules will pass through the facilitator protein, or you can say porins, as it is, while in some cases the movement of the molecule across the cytoplasmic membrane result in a change in the conformation of the porin protein as well. The examples of the porin can be OMPF protein, and this OMPF porin, and this OMPF porin is basically allowing polar small molecules to pass through the cytoplasmic membrane. And another important aspect is that all the small polar molecules, around 600 to 700 Daltons, molecular weight should be around 600 to 700 Daltons, can pass. That means OMPF protein are basically non-specific in nature. In other case, there is another protein, that is maltoporin, and this maltoporin is present in E. coli, and it is allowing the entry of only maltose. That means this is the example in which the porin is having specificity. So OMPF porin is non-specific in nature, while maltoporin is relatively specific. It will allow the passage of maltose in case of E. coli. Another example of porin can be 4E protein. This is the example of porin OMPF. As you can see in the figure is that the OMPF porin is made up of 3 units. It is having 3 polypeptide chain, and you can see that the 3 polypeptide chain are arranged in such a way that in the center there is a passage, and through this passage the small polar molecules can easily cross the membrane. Now the facilitated diffusion can also take place by the involvement of channel proteins. Now this particular channel proteins can be for ions, that is for the charged molecules, and this kind of facilitated proteins or channel proteins can be for uncharged molecules as well. Now in case of charged molecules, these proteins, or you can say the channel proteins, will open or close depending upon the presence or absence of a signaling molecule, normally referred to as a ligand molecule. Now this is the example of that signaling molecule, how it is influencing the transport of molecules across the cytoplasmic membrane. As you can see in the figure, the purple portion is the lipid bilayer, and the pink colored portion is the channel protein. As you can see that in the first instance, the channel protein, it is arranged in such a way that it is closed and it is not allowing the molecule to cross the cytoplasmic membrane. But as soon as a ligand molecule, which is shown in green color, binds with the channel protein, the channel immediately opens up and it is allowing the molecules, the nutrient molecules, to cross the cytoplasmic membrane. The example of this kind of channel protein is the binding of neurotransmitter, that is acetylcholine, which binds with the endings and opens the channel, and this opening of the channel allows the sodium ions to enter the cell, and this basically initiates a nerve impulse. Other examples of the channel proteins can be mainly for the, as I said earlier, for other molecule, that is uncharged molecule, and that includes the glycerol transporter, that is GLPF. Now this glycerol transporter is present in E. coli, and it is allowing the molecules like glycerol, polyhydric alcohols and other small molecules like urea and glycine to enter into the cell. But important thing is that it always excludes char molecules. That means this particular channel protein is only for uncharged molecules. Another example is aquaporin Z. Now if you remember, I have just explained you about the osmosis. I said that during osmosis the water molecules can enter, and depending upon the situation the water molecule can also get out of the cell. And this is normally done through simple diffusion, but the rate of simple diffusion through the lipid bilayer is a very slow process. So if a cell is placed in an environment where the salt concentration is different drastically, then water molecule may enter or water molecule may leave the cell. So what is happening is that the aquaporin Z is basically present in the cytoplasmic membrane of the cell, mainly bacterial cell, and it controls the movement of water across the cytoplasmic membrane. Say for example, if the cell is placed in an environment where the salt concentration is relatively low, then you know that because of osmosis the water will enter into the cell. Now when the water enters into the cell, the volume of the cell within the cell will increase, and this will create a pressure on the cell membrane. To avoid this, because if you allow the pressure to build up, the cell may ultimately burst. But the cell will have aquaporin Z, and this aquaporin Z will open up and it will allow the movement of water outside the cell. So the cell can maintain its integrity even if it is placed in an environment where the salt concentration is comparatively low. Another example of the channel protein is mechanosensitive channel. Now again, this is to be related with the osmosis. If you are placing a cell in a medium which contains very small molecules or very low solute concentration, then water will enter, and whatever extra water is entering into the cell will be removed either through simple diffusion or with the help of the channel protein just we have explained previously, aquaporin Z. But sometimes the situation may be so bad that the water molecule which is removed through aquaporin Z may not be sufficient to maintain the cell in proper shape. So in that particular case, the cell may have additional channels known as mechanosensitive channels, which will allow the removal of certain compatible solutes like potassium, glutamate and other molecules to remove the other compatible molecules to get out of the cell. So because of that, what happens? The intracellular concentration of solute will reduce. So this will ultimately result in less water being imported into the cell, and this is very essential to maintain a proper turgor pressure within a cell. Now the next point, that is the active process where the energy is being involved, will be dealt by my colleague Samir Gajjar.
Okay, so as my colleague had explained you, the passive processes normally occurs in an environment in which the concentration of nutrient is more outside the cell in comparison to the internal environment of the cell. Active processes involve a protein which is going to pump molecules or ion through a membrane against their concentration gradient. Now in comparison to the passive process, active process is going to transport nutrient from a low concentration to a high concentration. So to transport nutrient from a low concentration to high concentration, energy has to be spent. So active process, it requires the source of energy, and it requires a transmembrane protein which is called transporters. Now active processes again are of various types, and the types of active processes are: the first one is known as active transport, the second process is known as group translocation, and the third process is known as binding protein transfer. Now we are going to start with the active transport. Now again, active transport process are divided into two different types. Now as we had discussed earlier that for active transport of nutrient, energy has to be spent, and depending upon the source of this energy, the active transport process, they are of two different types. The first type of active transport process is direct active transport process. As the name suggests, it is direct active transport. So the source of energy is ATP. The energy directly from the ATP will be used to carry out such type of transport process. And the example of direct active transport process is ABC transporters, and the another type is P-type ATPases. The second type of active transport process are indirect active transport process. Now here the source of energy is the gradient which has been established. So here the electrochemical gradient is established by the cell earlier, and this electrochemical gradient which has been established earlier will be used to transport the molecule, nutrient molecule. So the source of energy in this case is indirect use of ATP. And the example of the indirect active transport is the Na plus or H plus gradients will be used to carry out the transportation. So first we are going to start with the direct active transport process, and the example of direct active transport process is ABC transporters. Now ABC, here the full form of ABC is, it is ATP binding cassettes. So those type of proteins, they are present in the transmembrane portion, and in that transmembrane portion such proteins they will be present, and those proteins, they are having two types of domains. The proteins are arranged in the cytoplasmic membrane in such a manner that the one of the domain will be exposed to the external environment, and the another domain, it is in contact with the cytoplasm. As you can see in the figure, the yellow color shows the bilayered lipids, and here the protein is being shown, and that type of protein is known as transporter protein. And this transporter protein, as you can see, it is having two domains, and it is been arranged in such a manner that the first domain, it is been exposed to the external environment, and the second domain, it is in contact with the cytoplasm. Now the first domain is the domain at which the ligand is going to bind. So it is in solute binding protein, and in that solute binding protein is going to bind at the first domain, and to the second domain there is a nucleotide binding domain. At the nucleotide binding domain, as shown in the figure, the two nucleotides are bound to that domain, and those two nucleotides are, two ATPs are bound at the domain number 2, and those ATP will be hydrolyzed. So here the source of energy to carry out transportation process is ATP only. Energy will be obtained directly from the ATP, and this protein has got receptor to bind ATP. So they are going to use the energy directly from hydrolysis of that ATP. Both the ATP molecule will be hydrolyzed, and the energy which will be released during that reaction will be used to carry out the active transport of solute molecules. Now examples of ABC transporters are, about 40% of the substrate transported by E. coli involves this type of transport, and such type of transport mechanism is being used by our liver cells to pump the salts of bile acids, and even the bacteria use the same type of transportation mechanism to export the antibiotic out of their cell, and thereby they gain resistance against that antibiotic. Now second type of direct active transport process includes P-type ATPases. Now in this P-type of ATPases, again the protein which is responsible for transportation will be present in the cytoplasmic membrane, and to that protein the specific ion is going to get bound to that protein, and once the ion bounds to that proteins, the protein will be phosphorylated, and that phosphorylation process results into a change in the conformation, and once there is a change in the conformation, the channel is going to open up, and it is going to transport the ions, and it is going to release those ions into the cytoplasm, and once the ions are being transported across the cytoplasmic membrane, the transporter proteins will be later dephosphorylated. Now the examples of P type of ATPases are the Na plus K plus ATPases, the second one is H plus K plus ATPases, and the third one is Ca plus 2 ATPases. Now as shown in the figure, the first type of P type of ATPases is Na plus K plus ATPases. Now again, as shown in the figure, you can observe that the yellow colored bilayered lipid is there, and the sky blue colored protein is present. Now this protein, it is going to create an electrochemical differences. That protein, it is going to use the energy from ATP. ATP will be hydrolyzed, and that energy will be used to transport the two types of ions. The first type of ions is Na plus ions, and those Na plus ions will be transported out of the cell, and at the same time the K plus ions are going to be transported inside the cell. So for every 3 molecules of Na plus that are being transported out of the cell, 2 molecules of K plus are going to be pumped inside the cell. So each time the enzyme does this type of mechanism, there is a net difference in the positive charge between the internal environment and the exterior of the cell, because 3 ions they are pumped out, positive ions, and only 2 positive ions are pumped in. So because of that, there is a net charge across the plasma membrane, with interior of the cell being negatively charged with respect to the exterior. And this type of transportation process, it accomplishes several vital functions. The same type of the potential which is being developed across the plasma membrane is used by our nerve cells and muscle cells for propagation, which will lead to nerve impulses and muscle contraction. So the functions of nerve impulses and muscle contraction which occurs in our body, it has been carried out by this type of transport mechanisms. The another example of Na plus K plus ATPases are that the accumulation of sodium ions outside of the cell draws water molecule out of the cell, and it enables to maintain the osmotic balance. As the sodium molecules are pumped out of the cell, it is basically advantageous in order to maintain the osmotic balance. And third, it is used to create a gradient of sodium ions outside the cell to pump the indirect functions of the cell. Next.
Transfer to me.
The remaining topic will be explained by my colleague.
Okay. So, as you are aware now that the active processes are basically of 2 types. One is active processes are basically of 2 types. The one is in which the ATP is directly utilized, and in another one where the ATP is not utilized directly, but ATP is utilized for a process which is indirectly utilized by the transport of other molecules. The indirect active transport is actually carried out by the formation of ion gradients, and these ion gradients can be a sodium gradient which is formed by the sodium potassium ATPases, or it can be a proton gradient which is actually established by FO-F1 ATPase complexes. Now here the ion gradient that is formed will ultimately result in the transport of molecules across the cytoplasmic membrane. The membrane proteins that pump ions or molecules by this means are termed secondary transporters or co-transporters. The co-transporters are either symporter or antiporters. Now you can see in the figure the indirect active transport and the co-transporters. The co-transporters in first figure it is shown that it is a symport. In symport, what is happening is that the 2 molecules are pumped in a same direction. In the figure shows the proton and lactose. The proton, which is gradient formed, and the lactose, which is the nutrient to be transported, both are moving inside the cytoplasmic membrane. So the movement is in a single direction. The another figure shows that there is movement of 2 different molecules. One is the ion sodium ions and another one is the proton. Here you can see that proton is being pumped out and the proton is being pumped in. So these are the symport and antiport. So in symport the movement is in a single direction, and in antiport the movement of molecules is in the opposite direction. The example will be the sodium glucose transporter. As you can see in the figure, the lipid bilayer and the membrane proteins are there. The first membrane protein is shown in blue color, which is basically sodium potassium ATPases, in which it pumps 3 sodium ions out of the cytoplasmic membrane and takes up 2 potassium ion inside the cell. Now this process, when it continues for some period of time, what is happening is that it forms an ion gradient and the sodium ion concentration increases outside the cytoplasmic membrane. Now this concentration gradient results in the movement of sodium ion back into the cytoplasm, and when the sodium ions are being pumped in, or when it is entering back into the cytoplasm, along with the sodium ion, the glucose can also be transported. So this is the example of a symport, and it is a secondary active transport. The energy is being utilized for the development of a concentration gradient gradient, a sodium gradient, and that energy is indirectly utilized for the transport of glucose molecule inside the cell. Now this mechanism is again used by our kidney cells and intestinal cells to transport glucose into the blood. The permeases of E. coli transport lactose into the cell, again uses the same mechanism for the transport of molecule. Now the example of antiport mechanism, here as I said earlier, in antiport mechanism what is happening is that the protein molecule, the transmembrane protein, it moves two molecule, transports two molecule, one molecule enters in while another molecule is removed from the cell, so in opposite direction. The example of the antiport pumps are calcium plus ions which are pumped out of the cells by sodium driven antiport pumps, and the same mechanism is used for the outward facilitated diffusion of protons in plants. The next example of active process is the phosphoenol pyruvate group translocation. Now this particular process is a distinct process in that it is observed only in prokaryotes, that is mainly in bacteria. And here in phosphoenol pyruvate, the source of energy is not ATP but it is the phosphoenol pyruvate. So in group translocation, phosphoenol group translocation, the source of energy is phosphoenol pyruvate and not ATP. Now this particular process involves a multi-component enzyme system which may be present as an integral protein in the cytoplasm, or it may be present in the cytoplasm in a soluble form. Now in this particular process, another important feature of this process is that the transported substrate is chemically modified as it is being passed through the cytoplasmic membrane, and normally it is being phosphorylated. That means a phosphate group is being transferred to that particular molecule, and this is mainly found for transport of sugars. But apart from sugar, certain fatty acids and nucleotides can also be transported by this particular mechanism. Now as you can see, the phosphoenol pyruvate group translocation includes a multi-enzyme system. It contains enzyme 1, enzyme 2, enzyme 3 and a low molecular weight protein normally known as histidine containing protein. Now out of this, enzyme 1 and the histidine containing protein are non-specific in nature. They are not specific for a particular substrate, while enzyme 2 and enzyme 3 are highly specific, or you can say they are substrate specific. Now you can see the figure. In the figure it is being shown the process of phosphoenol pyruvate group translocation. Now you can see that the phosphoenol pyruvate is present in the cytoplasm, and the phosphoenol pyruvate transfers its phosphate group to a low molecular weight protein, that is HPR, histidine containing protein. Now this transfer process is catalyzed by the enzyme 1. Enzyme 1 and HPR both are cytoplasmic and they are soluble in cytoplasm. They are not membrane bound. Now this HPR, once it is phosphorylated, it transfers its phosphate group to another protein, that is enzyme 3. Now this enzyme 3 can be bound with a cytoplasmic membrane protein, that is enzyme 2, or it may remain in a soluble form in the cytoplasm. Now this enzyme 3, which is phosphorylated, later on transfers its phosphate group to enzyme 2, which get phosphorylated. Now as soon as the enzyme 2 is phosphorylated, the glucose molecule which is bound with the enzyme 2 molecule, which is again you can say a protein which allows the entry of molecules. So the glucose which is bound with the enzyme 2, it starts moving downwards within the cytoplasm, and as the glucose moves downwards into the cytoplasm, the enzyme 2 transfers the phosphate group to the glucose, resulting in the formation of glucose 6 phosphate when it enters into the cytoplasm. So chemically the carbohydrate is in the form of glucose outside the cytoplasmic membrane, and it is in the form of glucose 6 phosphate inside the cytoplasmic membrane. Now the same mechanism is used for the transport of glucose and fructose. But certain other molecules like mannitol, the transport process by phosphoenol pyruvate group translocation is slightly different. What is the difference? The difference is that in this particular case, the low molecular histidine containing protein which is phosphorylated can directly transfer the phosphate group to the enzyme 2 molecule. So there is no requirement of enzyme 3 in this particular case. Now the references used for the preparation of this slide includes the Microbiology by Prescott, Microbiology by R.M. Atlas, Microbial Physiology by Mott, Foster and Spector, biochemistry by Stryer, principles of biochemistry by Leninger, and few sites from internet.
ઓકે વિદ્યાર્થી મિત્રો, આપણે જોયું કે આપણા ગેસ્ટ સ્પીકર્સ સમીરભાઈ અને કમલભાઈએ કેટલું ડિટેલની અંદર ટ્રાન્સપોર્ટેશન મેમ્બ્રેનની અંદર અથવા બહાર સમજાવ્યું છે આપણને. એક વસ્તુ હું તમારા ધ્યાનમાં લાવવા માગું છું, that cells do not always take up the dissolved form of nutrients. Many times they also take in certain solid materials, and that process you all know is what we call it as a phagocytosis. So in many cases, certain prokaryotes, certain protozoas and other higher forms of life, they always take certain solid foods as a nutrients. But the process of membrane transport, that also takes place in them, in the sense that once these solid materials are hydrolyzed and broken down into simpler forms, the nutrients obtained from them, they have to reach to the all parts of the cells, because they are multicellular animals, and in order that these nutrients reach to those cells, the process of membrane transport is must. So you may be thinking that as a human beings we are taking in solid materials, but basically our cells at different types, also at different places, also carry out this membrane transport process. Okay, in the end I would like to sincerely thank our guest speakers Kamal bhai as well as Samir bhai for their spending a valuable time and delivering a lecture of this interest to us. I also thank Commissioner, Department of Higher Education, for arranging the programs like Sandan, by which the experts are able to reach to the students. And in the end, I would also like to express my gratitude towards the staff members, crew, and persons behind the camera who have been working very hard in order to bring this program live to you.